Hello and welcome to Actionable Analytics, a digital solutions webinar run by myself, Joff Crabtree. I'm one of the business advisors with Business Station. And Actionable Analytics today is going to be around the Google marketing platform and the ways that you can get set up to track and measure web performance across mobile app websites. So if I can switch to here, we're also looking at Google Search Console. So Google Search Console it used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, and it gives people an idea of what visitors are searching for and indicates if there's any factors affecting the search performance for the Google spider as it crawls through your site. So it's very useful for monitoring and troubleshooting any website issues. So Google Marketing Platform, we're looking at 5 different tools. Many of you already know of Google Analytics, which is the main insights platform. Now, all of this is free from Google, and Analytics has a lot of reports and data in there from tracking events, looking at your audience demographics and geography, even some further psychographic insights for your audiences. And then Data Studio is a way to present that data in a visual and customizable way. You've also got Tag Manager. So Tag Manager gives you the ability to track custom measurements and custom events and put some data that's more relevant to your business into Google Analytics to report on. Google Optimize, which is split testing, so you can vary the message and personalize content depending on the audience and see which one performs best. And then the Google Surveys, which is market research. Now you can either be running surveys across the web, or you can also pay Google for survey results based on your audience requirements. Okay. Sorry about that, just had to stop some of the noise. So if we jump forward from here, so we're going to have a look at some of the tools that Google has available here. Now this is a number of demos and tools from Google that can help with understanding all the different sites, applications. There's a wide range of tools available from Google. I'll just log in and we'll get that underway. So when you first log into this, it's going to pull up all the different accounts. Got a few of them there. And if we have a look at this, you've got the standard UA code, which is the old Google Analytics tracking. And then I'll just go down and open that view and we'll have a look at this one. So this is a site I built a number of years ago and measure and report on for some time. So clicking on that link has taken us into Google Analytics. And for those of you that haven't been in Google Analytics before, we'll take you through a few of the statistics. So by default, it's opening on the audience tab. Now, if I just move this zoom bar out of the way, you can see on the default screen that we're looking at all of the users, so 100% of users, and it's looking at the last 7 days, 23rd to the 29th of September. So you can see that on this graph, there's 7 points, and that's looking at each single day as a marker. You can also change that to be a week, which probably won't do much in a 7-day view, but you can change the time frame. So this will show you all the spikes in traffic, and you can see as we hover over it, 9 a.m, 10 a.m, that's probably over the weekend. And again, so it looks like there's business hours traffic there. Going down into the visitor statistics. So you've got users versus new users. And the difference is that the difference between the two numbers is this is the all users, including those returning to the site, and then new users, the first-time visitors to the site. Sessions is how many times they have visited the site. So each time they go to the site, they view a few pieces of content, a few pages, and then exit. When they come back again, that's a second session, and on average 1.3 sessions per user. So in total, the number of page views across the whole site is over 10,000 pages per session. So each time someone comes and looks at the site, they're looking at between 2 to 3 pages, staying on site for about 2 minutes and bouncing. So this is when someone arrives on any of the pages. So overall, any visitor that lands on a website page and then leaves without interacting at all, it counts that as a bounce. And so just over half of the visitors are leaving the page. Now, if we break down a few of these points, so you can look at the user brackets over time to see that over a 28-day period, there's a significant number of return traffic. But when it gets really interesting is down to, okay, that hasn't actually pulled up the data that I was hoping it would. Let's have a look here. Okay, I might need to just switch over. Apologies about this. Let's just switch over to a different account. Let's have a look at Anya. Okay, so we don't have demographics and interest on here. One of the great things about Google data, and one of the first things you need to do when you are setting up Google, is to go and enable demographics and interest reports. So I'll walk through each of these steps shortly once we've had a look at the main dashboard. But you can break down your visitor by age group. You can see here an example graph, by gender. And then when it gets really interesting is the interest. So there's a few different ways this can segment data. So affinity categories are essentially, they look at the online behaviors of visitors anonymously, of course. They're not capturing any sensitive data, but they'll have categories like a green living enthusiast or a 30-minute chef or film buff. So all around particular psychographics that those audience segments fall into. And we'll have a look here. If we go to interest categories, just going to open this up in our web browser and it should give us some examples. And that's going into Google Ads. Apologies, we'll jump back out of there. So affinity categories, they are a grouping of behaviors in market segments. It's when an audience is in the market to search for a particular thing. So they might be looking at renting a house or buying a car or finding a new phone. There's obviously geographic locations. Once again, we've got a data issue. I might just change the view in this data, which will give us a bit more of what we're looking for. Let's change it to, and here we can set any particular parameters we like. So I'm going to set it back to 2015 when I actually built this site originally, and look from there to now. And the fabulous thing about Google Analytics is you can see data over a considerable period of time. Let's just jump here. Now that seems peculiar in terms of the data that's pulled up. So let's not, just reset this view. So set it to the last 30 days. And then clicking compare, by default, it's going to choose the previous 30 days prior. And then you can see, compare the traffic. So over the last month, there's been an increase in users in sessions, in page views, and the bounce rate's gone down. And you want that to be red because you want less people bouncing, less people leaving the site. So continuing down the menu here, You can break into the new versus returning traffic and see across acquisition. So here's how many users overall, the number of new users and the number of sessions, breaking down the bounce rate. So comparing new visitors versus returning visitors bounce rate, you can see that the returning visitors are now bouncing more. They've come back to the site, but haven't found what they're looking for the second time around. And then, okay, bear with me. I'm just going to go down to the acquisition. So this is where it gets interesting in terms of where did the visitors come from on your website. And we'll look at all traffic channels. And you can see now it breaks down that 30-day period compared to the previous against organic search, which is just through Google. A direct is when someone's typed in the web address exactly. We've got referral from other sources, from email campaigns you might have run, social media, and then other. So what we'll do is we'll just have a look at the source and medium tab under here, which breaks that down a little bit further to say, okay, the source was Google and it was organic traffic, e-newsletters, an internal referral, members.law society is their portal. So from their member portal, and then you've got some external referrals as well. So legal aid, LinkedIn, Facebook, and you can also add Google Ads and look at I don't know if they're running advertising, so we might not have data in here, but we can look at that in another account shortly. And in Search Console, sorry, we've had a bit of a hiccup with that as well. Let's just switch over to okay, so we're going to have a look back down here at the campaigns tab. Right. Google Ads. Here we go, Google Ads campaigns. And so what you can do is connecting Google Analytics with Google Ads, you can get some very detailed data on how all your different ad sets are performing. You can see that it's sorted by number of clicks. And so from clicks to the total cost per click, so $1 per click. And then for some reason that hasn't actually tracked the user data. So there's likely to be a problem with the configuration of the account to look into. What we'll do is I'm going to walk through setting up the Google Analytics and Google Marketing platform on a website. So I'm just going to go to my own website here and I'll log into the admin section. I've just noticed that the screen sharing isn't working, so bear with me 1 second. Apologies about that. Let's try. Okay, if we switch on this one. Okay, go with this. Hopefully you can now see. Can you now see a Chrome browser? Fabulous. Apologies about that. So I'm going to show you setting up the Google Marketing Platform on a WordPress website, being that this is one of the most common platforms. We can walk through, if anyone wants to look at another platform or the developer way of setting up Google Analytics, we can. It might be a bit too far down the rabbit hole, but please let me know if you'd like me to go through that process as well. But inside the WordPress plugin repository, Google have a tool called Sitekit. I'm just going to type Sitekit in here. And this is a tool you can see here that it's created by Google. And it will give you all of the different tools: Search Console, Analytics, Pagespeed, Tag Manager, Optimize. So it's essentially going to do all the hard work for us. And so up here on the menu, once it's installed, we have Google Sitekit. And it's just checking that it's compatible. I'll quickly sign in here and walk through the process. So on other platforms, there are ways of just adding your analytics tracking code and it will link Google Analytics. The great thing about this particular tool is the fact that it allows us to connect a whole bunch of Google tools to measure and integrate. So it's got 5 services there. I'll just click on that and I'll show Search Console, sites and domains, and some of my info. That's fine. And we're going to proceed. Now, the great thing about this is it's going to walk you through very simply without having to know any code or do anything particularly technical. So we're just going to proceed and it will check that I own my own website. So Joff Crabtree being the name of my website. If we just wait for the network to process that. Okay, and I'm going to allow myself access. Fabulous. So it's now, you can see here, it's set up my site in Search Console, and I'm going to go to the dashboard. So this will take us back to the WordPress administrative dashboard. We now have Search Console connected here. So from there, you've also got links to AdSense, Analytics, and PageSpeed Insights. AdSense being if I was to be running ads through the Google network on my site, and that would link in those ads to the rest, but I don't. The next thing we're going to do is connect Google Analytics, and that's very much around just clicking Connect Service. Choose my account again. Okay, and while we just wait for this to connect the service, and you can see that it's not only adding Google Analytics, but it's adding a new Google Analytics 4 property. And we can have a look at what the difference is in a little bit. Basically, the Google Analytics 4 allows you to map multiple data streams, as it were. So you might have a website, a mobile app, and another application, and it can track them all as separate streams of data that you can then compare and contrast against. So a little bit of a upgrade from Google in their analytics platform fairly recently. And so I've just creating that web property through analytics. It's going to just guide me through every step of permissions. So I want my permissions again. Now, it does say make sure you trust Sitekit. It is from Google, so I do trust it, but please feel free to, if you're going through this process, read their data safety guidelines. And so we now have both Search Console connected and Google Analytics connected. So when you first connect a tool using Google Sitekit, you get these blue boxes, and it's saying analytics data is not yet available. Please check back later, which is absolutely fine. Basically, looking at Google Analytics data, you want at least 30 days of data capture to then compare against, so that you essentially set a benchmark for those first 30 days. And then over the next 30 days, you can compare it against that performance to see that the website traffic is increasing. So not as high volume as some of those other sites we just looked at in Google Analytics, but you can see that there's been 45 page impressions and 13 clicks. And again, much like the other Google Analytics screen we looked at, is you can set the time frame up here as well. So then from the top, PageSpeed Insights is a tool that allows a function called Lighthouse, I believe it is. Google Lighthouse connected because it's already got all the permissions from the other tools. PageSpeed Insights is going to give us data around how the page is performing in search, whether there's anything that needs to be addressed. So we'll just wait for that to load up. And you can see that we've got a few things to look at. Oh no, total blocking time. So if we look at the core web vitals, these are total blocking time, contentful paint. So it's the time taken for the page to load, and cumulative layout shift. So basically cumulative layout shift is if you have a responsive site and as it loads, it's shuffling things around. So people might be trying to read information, but because of the flow of the website, as it's loading in, it's pushed things around on the page, which can be difficult. And so this is running from Google Lighthouse. The PageSpeed Insights tool is also available. So if you just go to your browser and look for Google PageSpeed Insights, you should get a test with Google link. So we'll have a look. Here we go. Test my site, think with Google. Apologies. And so I'm going to look at what those errors are. Just going to put in my website here. And so this gives us an indication of areas to improve based on the Google's analysis of our website. And within less than a minute, we should have a report. We can look through a custom report, but for now, we'll just simply look at this. So the great thing about this site is if you've got an existing domain, then it's going to give you all the recommendations to resolving the site. So it will give us fixes there. It's also going to look at ways that it can be tailored and personalized. And we'll look at that shortly with Google Optimize. And so I don't actually have a sign up or checkout feature on my site, but it will take you through all of the recommendations to improve lead generation, improve the mobile appearance, personalization, and the speed performance. And that will come through into the dashboard that we looked at before. So same tool here in the dashboard, it just gives you more details. So you've got some guidance here. So sizing images, blocking resources. So render blocking resources are when there are scripts or other elements that are loading before the page loads. And so Google can, or you can improve the optimization by putting them at the end of the page. There are a number of tools within WordPress that can do this for us, but let's jump into, okay, is this going to show us the Google Tag Manager? I'll just jump into Search Console screen. So we've got average click-through rate, keywords. Okay, it's still gathering data for Google Analytics. Let's just see if we can connect more services. So we're in the settings page and we've got Google Optimize and Google Tag Manager. So I'm going to set up Tag Manager now. Again, this helps because it guides us through a very simple, just a few clicks to set it up rather than having to paste any code into a site. I need to re-authenticate. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. Bear with me one moment. Let's just re-authenticate here. And try once more. It's trying to say that I don't have the necessary permissions. Okay, I think what might be easier is if we just jump over to Google Tag Manager. I can look at the integration later, and we'll do a walkthrough of what this tool does. So the issue that I mentioned just before about having a lot of scripts loaded at the start of the page, Google Tag Manager is a way to resolve that. So if we look at apologies, we'll go. So Google Tag Manager, this is a tool to enable you to track events, to track custom parameters and load that all into Google. So if we look at here, we've got the most recent changes around tracking the scroll depth. So seeing how far people read through content and passing that all into Google Analytics. And that's done by creating tags. So if we click on new tag here and tag configuration, it's going to give us a tag type. Now, what this enables us to do is just put all of the scripts and the Facebook pixels, LinkedIn pixels, Twitter pixels, whatever your scripts are that you're loading at the start, you can load them into Google Tag Manager, and Google will just load that one script and can then push all the rest in because it's linked in through here. So we can get our Google Analytics script and we can load Google Analytics in there. I'm just going to go back through and show you some of these others. You can link Google Ads, Google Optimize, Google Surveys, custom HTML. So if you've got another script that you're a piece of JavaScript that might be slowing down the site, you can paste that script tag into here and Google Tag Manager will condense that all together into one piece that will load a lot faster. And then you've got a number of other marketing tools on here. So if I just point out some as we go down the list, some people might have used Crazy Egg for heat map tracking. Google Ads calls from website conversions. So if you're putting a phone number in your ads and you've got a click to call action, then that can track all the calls. So you know how many of those phone calls are related to your advertising spend. Hotjar is another similar one to Crazy Egg where you're tracking heat maps. You've also got things like LinkedIn. So your LinkedIn pixel is there. Further down, we have Pinterest. Shareaholic. Shareaholic is a social sharing platform, allows people to send to their social networks and to bookmark. Now, if anyone doesn't have social sharing or a tool similar to this on their website, I'd highly recommend it in terms of increasing the site performance and visibility in Google, is getting that personal referral from people sharing or bookmarking your content. There's a Twitter tag. And so you can see you can add them all in together. We'll just scroll back up to see that there was, now that what I have noticed, and this has changed since I was last in here, is the Facebook tag isn't there. But easily enough, all you would do is when you go and create a Facebook pixel within the Facebook platform, is you choose custom HTML. We can change the name of the tag to be Facebook pixel. And paste the pixel tracking code. So let's just go to, Business Manager in Facebook and see if I can grab a pixel code. Just let the internet catch up with us here and quickly authenticate. Good old two-factor authentication comes through to my phone and it will notify me if anyone else is trying to log in. I'm like, yes, this is me. I don't even need to put in a code. Now that I've accepted it on my phone, that will just resolve and we are in Facebook Business Manager. So just just clicked on more tools and we're going to business apps. So this is a way you can link a whole bunch of different tools in Facebook Business Manager. Now, apologies because this platform also changes its layout and where everything is each time I'm in here. So I'm just going to find might need to switch over to a business account. Okie doke. So that's got page details there and whoop. Where are our tools? Hopefully this is taking us to the right place. Right, we're in the right place now, thankfully. So we've got users, partners, data sources. So in Facebook Business Manager under data sources, there are pixels here. If I was going to create one, I've already created one for my website. Let's just find actual pixel code. Or should we just add a new one? So I've clicked add to add a new pixel and we'll call it check your website for easy setup options. I'm just going to type in that. And this should pump out a little bit of, so I'm going to set it up manually. It did have an option to set it up with WordPress, but I'm going to show you an example to copy this code to my clipboard from Facebook Business Manager and jumping back to Google Tag Manager now, where I'm creating a custom HTML tag and just pasting that pixel in there. So now I've got the custom HTML tag configured. I need to tell Google Tag Manager when it's going to be triggered. So clicking on triggering, you can see some of the things that will make tags trigger. So a page view, and I've got some custom items in there. I'm just going to go page and save. And there we've got a Facebook pixel. Now I have realized that I'm on not on my website Google Tag Manager account, but you can see that there are changes here waiting to be posted. And so once I have made the changes that I want to, I can click on preview and that will show me the website and how the tags are running. So if I'll just see if that's going to, so it will tell me that there's an error. So we're not going to be able to see the preview, but it will open the browser with that website address. And then you can view how the tags interact and test it by going through the process of a normal visitor, clicking on things, and it will pop up and show you each tag when it's going to be triggered, and then just submit. And that will push, once you've reviewed and you're happy with the results, submit will push that live to the website. So it'll be tracking. Now, this is relevant in terms of the data that you might want to connect. If we look at the triggers here, so this is a local government website and we're looking at tracking external links. So anything that doesn't go internally within the website and is opening in a new browser, tracking where people are going to, anything that's being downloaded, and walking through. So these steps here were custom elements that would track a progressive profiled form. So from getting to the electronic rates page to then reading about the FAQs, seeing if people actually engage with the explanation of how to do it, and then accepting the terms and conditions and submitting the form. And each of those events was set on a funnel or a goal in Google Analytics. So this hopefully gives you an idea of how Google Tag Manager works. It's about deciding on what you're wanting to measure on your website beyond just the normal clicks and views and the tracking, to look at more detailed events, playing audio, scrolling down the page. Let me just switch over to one of the other accounts and we'll have a look at down here, I think it is. So just see if it's going to load up. Okay, here we are. And so if we look at the tags for this account, so ad tracking for internal ads. So this is for the Law Society here in WA, and the measurement that they wanted for their members is internal ads where their members can use AdSense to post ads about their law firm or service on their website. Click to call tracking, so only in mobile view, if the visitor goes to the member directory and is looking for a law firm, have they clicked? And so we can track how many inbound referrals are coming via phone on mobile, any documents that have been downloaded. Now, obviously on desktop, click to call doesn't necessarily work. So instead it was a view number button. And if someone clicks the button, it shows them the phone number to type in. And so you could track separately from how many phone reveals and how many click to call on mobile, tracking any resources. So they are guides, templates, other documents, and then standard click tracking. So if we look at one of these triggers, so this trigger type is saying that it's a click on any element, but then what I need to do is have an option here around what elements are met as true. So rather than any click, and that would fire on anything clicked on the page, we set it to a particular element, and that is an attribute, which I'll show you data attributes in a moment. You can set it to, depending on what the specific element is in the document object model. So that would be pasting a particular piece of code in. You can look at the URL it's on so that this would only trigger on a particular page. You can look at if they came from a referrer. So if it was from a network partner and someone does then go and purchase a product or a service or create some conversion on your website, that would track the number of conversions for, say, an affiliate of your business. So we'll discard those changes and just step into the variables. I apologize, I did have more slides here to give you more details, but I'll send them to all of the participants after this session, which will walk you through all the different tools. I do realize it's a bit ad hoc. I'm having some technology challenges today, let's put it. So the standard built-in variables within Google Tag Manager. So we're looking at when we click on an element on the page, we're looking at its target of where it's pointing to, target, whether it's opening in a new tab or current tab. It might be particular text. And then these data attributes, if I open one of these up, hopefully it will give us so data layer elements are part of HTML5 and allows you to add additional parameters inside the code of a page element to track. So we know that this is an element on the page within a data set, which would be a directory, and it's the phone element because we've named the element on the page with the variable phone. Out of context, that probably doesn't make too much sense, but then there's also, thank you Google, there is also templates for all of this stuff as well. So you can search through their gallery. Let's move the chat window out of the way. And so all of these different providers across a number of different services have created templates already for you. So let's look at one that we'll probably know. There's Amazon, if you do any Amazon trading. So we'll just go back and look at see if there's a social network down here. Core Web Vitals, so that's looking at those performance metrics. Where are we? Here we go, Facebook Pixel or Facebook Customer Chat. We'll go with the standard Facebook Pixel here. And so it's got a template where you can add the Facebook Pixel into your Tag Manager workspace, and it's going to put the Tag Manager script on the web page, access variables. So these are all the different variables that the Facebook Pixel would pull through, and log it to a console. So that's only during the during debug, and then it's going to read any e-commerce details. So if we just step out of here for a second, make that window smaller. So then you've also got some of the different things here. So if you're looking at the elapsed time that someone spent on a page, or a title of a document that they downloaded, or a cookie acceptance. So that there's a lot of ways that this can help you with getting your Google Tag Manager set up. The simple one to track is just events. Now, if I go to the tags here, and we'll look at how those events then get passed back into Google Analytics. So if we look at, say, all these click to call tracking and documents, I'm just going to switch back to events. I'll switch over to this site. Okay, and now out of the acquisition, so in the behavior section of Google Analytics, there's an events tab. We'll just look at the overview here. And so you can see that there are different categories. So let's look at the Find a Lawyer referrals. So these are the phone clicks and tracking. So there's been this at a top level, just as a category, doesn't really give us much data, but you can see up here, we've got primary dimension of event action, event label, and event category. And these are three fields that you populate in Google Tag Manager that then pass the data back. So the action we've got, a website visit, a phone reveal, which is desktop, and click to call. And so you can see the events there. And then the event label, and you start seeing each of the different names there. So that gives a bit of an indication of how many referrals are getting sent between the different members. I'll just switch back to event category. So in here. And so that gives you an indication of, now this particular site doesn't have an event value. It's not actually a paid program. Membership is part of the involvement in the industry. So you need to be a member, and so the event value hasn't been set in this particular Google Analytics account. But if you're setting up goals for e-commerce or other paid goals, then you'd see a value per event in there. Now, top events is going to show us this. We'll just have a look at the events flows. So part of the magic of Google Analytics will actually show you how the traffic flows through your site. And we're looking at Australia and first event, second event, third event. What we can actually do is change this from just going by country, which Being that it's an Australian website isn't particularly useful for us. You can set any of these. So let's look at the landing page. Where did they arrive on the site? And most of them arrived on the Find a Lawyer page, and then down through. That doesn't quite show us. Let's try behavior flow. Here we go. So starting on the home page, and you can see the pipes. So the difference in the size of these pipes between each element and each row is the volume of traffic that's gone between it. If you hover over, you can see from the home page to, okay, so home page to first interaction at the top here, continuing development, that had 294 of the sessions from the 7,000 that are there, but then 100 more pages. So you can look at all of the different pages that were linked to in terms of the top pages, breaking down the traffic to see, okay, most of the sessions were in CPD seminars, and then you can just add that to the end of the URL. And if you were to now, apologies, let's just jump here, let's see what that one is. I type the name wrong. Bear with me one moment. Tab. I'm just going to add CPD seminars onto the end. That should show us where these events are occurring. Okay, so these are looking at the events that are run by the industry and looking at the different searches that happen here. So all of these formats, all of the competency areas and the areas of law can be tracked as events in Google Analytics, which can give you a breakdown of, say for this not-for-profit member organization, a breakdown of interest areas, of skills. So any filter, any function, any sort of complex functionality on a website, you can measure the visitors' interactions with those elements to create value for a business. And the reason that this was done for the Law Society is if we look back at these events, we've got a membership-based business, and they're looking at how many referrals do they give them for being a member and being part of that organization. So Google Analytics, we've looked at, Google Tag Manager, we've looked at. Now, the systems I've shown you so far are fairly overwhelming in terms of the number of filters and tools and bits and pieces to play with. But part of the same platform is Google Data Studio. Now, Google Data Studio makes it a lot easier because there's dashboards and reports. So when you first log in, you've got some templates, and we can click here on Template Gallery. So you've got a standard marketing template. If you're running e-commerce, or we're looking at a behaviors overview. What else have we got? YouTube analytics. And so there's a whole bunch in here. Let's have a look at the Search Console report firstly. And this will give us an indication of the sorts of data that Search Console collect. And so you can filter, this is some sample data. Obviously, if we want to link it to one of our Google accounts, we can click Use Template here. And then we can deselect everything and start with Australia. There we are. And let's see what results. That will filter just Australian traffic in this sample. And then that's reloaded, and you can look at whether it's desktop, mobile, or tablet. So the landing pages and what people queried to get to this. Now, if we switch this over to using this template, but our own data sources, so instead of the sample, we switch it into, no, I haven't got one loaded already, so let's create a data source. So here it shows the different things that we can create, and we're looking at creating a Google Analytics one, but we'll just have a quick scroll through to show you that there's 482 other connectors. There's build your own. I haven't actually used that. That's a new tool, but if you're looking for something that's not offered here, highly recommend Morpheo if you're doing paid advertising. They do great performance marketing. So then if you have a look through, we won't go through all of them because obviously there's nearly 500. The Google ones are at the top, which is fabulous. And we're going to link up Google Analytics. So I'm just going to authorize Google Data Studio with Google Analytics. And we'll look at the Law Society's one to go. Here we go. So selected from my accounts which property and which view. And then at the top right, I click connect. And that's authenticated Google Analytics with Google Data Studio. So now this particular view will be pulled through as a data source into Google Data Studio. Just wait for it. And you can see here are all the different dimensions. So the different pieces from Google Analytics that can come through. Not going to go through all of those, but that's essentially if you wanted to add in additional dimensions, additional piece of data, then we can add that to the report. We'll do the same here. Bear with the internet as it loads this one up. It's gone from our sample data into okay, that hasn't actually given us any of the data, which is not particularly great. Let's go back to the homepage of Google Data Studio, and instead we'll just go with the standard marketing report template. And again, switching from here, we can choose, now that we're authenticated, it will let us choose any of the analytics views that we have in our account. And we're looking at that period of 31st of August, 29th of September. And this is a lot more, I think you'll agree, it's a lot easier to understand what's happening when you're looking at a report like this. So if there are other people in the business that need to know how things are tracking, then these reports can be created to provide summaries across the business or to keep tabs on how things are rolling overall. We could drill that down to just show Australia and the different states and territories to look at the traffic. So there's a lot of customization that can be done. You can just click on use template here. Link the, did I miss it? There it is. And so now we're in the edit view of that same screen. So we can take any of these elements just by clicking on it, and we can either reposition it, change it around. We can change the data here. So let's see if we can drill down. There we go. So I've changed that by clicking on drill down. It's added not just country, but also city. I don't think we need subcontinent or continent ID. For now, I'll just take those out by clicking the X. Default drill down level. Let's go by city ID and see what it does. And then, okay, that's changed. Let's change the view. And clicking on Australia should filter it by Australia, I'd hope. Clicking on Australia, let's go. No, it's not going to do it for me. What we should see is actually a larger scale of Australia map with the breakdown of traffic by each state. I'll just switch back into edit mode. you can see that if you don't particularly like that shade of teal, you can change the theme of these reports, customize the colors, backgrounds, etc. Change the layout so that you can remove elements. So instead of US letter, we might change that to being A4, and we can put in the pixel height there. Snapping to the guides or the grids so that your elements are all aligned. And so you can then add additional pages. So we might say that's the overall report, and then here's a new page where we want to add an element. So let's look at, actually what I'll do is I'll just switch back to our homepage, because I think I've got a multi-page report we can pull up. If I can just find, this is not the one, but there's another example of a report. So you can select, you've got multiple filters in there, which you can change to just display certain groups or certain categories, the overall traffic, entry pages. Just see if there's some of the other reports. There's an SEO, Global Search Console for SEO. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat with Google Data Studio, but you can see this one's looking at the Search Console data, and you've got the number of impressions for a particular search query. We can make those columns wider to see that would be the impressions, the number of clicks, click-through rate. But obviously there's some templates, these are ones that I've collected over time, and some of them are needing some attention, which would have been helpful ahead of here. Let's have a look at the template library and see if there's other ones. Google Analytics audience overview. I don't think we looked at this one, but let's pull it up. And this gives us a similar one where we can go and sort by, actually this one has Australia click only, and that will just filter the Australian traffic. And then that gives us the different regions within Australia. So we can even search by Western Australia and just go Western Australia only. Obviously, you can see the numbers dropping each time for the number of users and sessions. And then where, so in Western Australia, it was only direct traffic. If we take off that limitation of just Western Australia and we look at all of Australia, then we've got the other options in there. So it really depends on the sort of data you want to report on, but straight out of the box, Google has a template library for Google Data Studio, which is very easy to customize. And from the outset, there are some reports you can set up that will give you an overall view of your business. Now, jumping to a new tab, one of the other tools, which we have not yet looked at, and I'm conscious of the time, we've got a couple of minutes left. So this is just a very high level walkthrough. Now, when this session ends, I will send through a guide on these with some links about where you can find training and resources and templates. So Google Optimize, let's just sign in. So split testing, multivariate testing, and looking at ways to personalize the web experience. So if we just go for one of these containers that I'll set up, and it will guide you through. The lovely thing about Google products is they're pretty much just going to walk through with you. You can learn about creating the first experience, and there's a bunch of videos on YouTube that they've put up there. We'll just walk through this very quickly. We'll go first split test. Now, Google have some options here. Redirect tests. So you might have two different URLs. Say you've created two completely different landing pages on different URLs. You can test the traffic. So let's say we're talking about a time window where you might have 1,000 visitors, and randomly Google Optimize will send a visitor to one, a visitor to the other. And so depending on how many variations, it's going to average your traffic and send one or the other down there and give you the results of how well they engage with that content. We're going to look at personalizing this. So let's, instead of split testing, we'll do personalization, because I think that's much better. What's the URL of the page we'd like to use? The editor page. This is the container for my site, but we'll go there, and then the button has turned blue. And this will take us into an editor. And so it has targeting rules as to where we're going to target. So we can either make changes to the site first, or we can look at the audience targeting. So clicking on here, and there's a number of different things we can look at. So where they're located, we can look at what device they're using, if they've come from a particular link. So UTM parameters are added to the end of a URL. We'll have a look at that in just one moment. Data layer are the event tags that we talked about just before, or if there's a particular query in the URL, any cookies. And so you can filter down by, let's say, time first arrival. So that's not a good one to start with. Let's try device category. So if we are going to be on presenting this to mobile users only, we can add that in. And then where's the site changes gone to? Let's go make site changes. Okay, we won't have time to add the extension, but let's just view it in the Chrome Web Store. So this will be a Chrome browser extension. What it allows you to do is to, if you can see the image here, we'll just zoom in a bit. It allows you to select any element on your existing web page, and Google will provide a front-end editor that you can change the content on as one variation, and then create another variation where you change the content again. So a simple example might be that you want to personalize the experience for returning visitors. So let's say where it says measure, learn and grow here, it might say, welcome to our site. And then if it's a returning visitor, it could say, welcome back. If the person has registered and we have their name, it might say, welcome back, John. And so you can have all of those variations to go, let's make it more personal for the user, make sure they know that, okay, we've been here before, we know what they're looking for. The previous visit, they might have looked at particular categories or content. And so you can use this tool to display more relevant content on the homepage for that person. So instead of just ending up on the homepage and having to navigate their way down to what they're looking for, they've been there before, and you can customize the page to suit. Now, one of the other ways that this can be tested, and excuse me for opening yet another tab, but Google URL Builder. So this is part of the dev tools we looked at the start. And this allows you to build a, if you've ever seen, let's see if there's one of these tabs open that has, here you see it, in the URL bar, you can see that there's this ampersand. So we've got a question mark and then asset ID equals, and business ID equals. So they're all UTM parameters. And in this campaign builder, you can put in something like, let's do this. We might say that, okay, well, the campaign ID is going to be Zoom. Campaign source is going to be could be from Google, could be a newsletter, could be online training like today. And then the campaign medium is going to be just from a web visit, but you can see if it's a Google ad you're running, cost per click, if it's a banner ad, if it's an email campaign, then you can put those in. And this will all pass into Google Analytics. So the information I send through to participants after this session will show you how to set up the structures for your URLs so that the reporting is consistent. Because obviously if you create another URL and the names are different, it's going to be two separate line items on that report. So we'll just say that this is a banner ad. Campaign name can be solutions. Campaign term can be web viewing. I'm putting in anything I want here. I haven't actually set up a structure. And then if I was to have multiple ads within this particular campaign, so for let's say this is a keyword. So we'll say course, and then the ads might be course ad 1, and then we can go through the process again and create course ad 2. And so you can have your 3 different ads within that same campaign being tracked. And here you've got that same thing, the question mark with the UTM parameter equals, and it's populated that for us. So we can just copy that from here. So when I paste it into the URL, it looks the same. It's not going to know anything about these because I've just made them up on the fly, but it will load up my website. And so that will now track a visitor into the website, and we'll see all of those sources come through Google Analytics as a campaign. So one of the links that I'll send you after this is here. It's called Google Analytics Demos and Tools. And this will actually walk through all of the different ways you can use Google Tag Manager. So Tag Assistant is a Chrome extension to help you test your tags. The campaign URL builder we just looked at. You can look at enhanced e-commerce. So this is for tracking, using Google Tag Manager to track average order value, customer lifetime value, average cost per lead. So you can get some very simple tools that can help walk you through all of the different Google tools. And this one particularly, dimensions and metrics. If you're trying to understand the difference between users and sessions and all the rest, this will actually walk through what that is. So you can click on the info box beside any of these values. So new users, let's click on that one, and it takes you down to an explanation about that, the type of data it is. So it's a number or a percent. And so it will talk through each of those different sessions. So it's essentially a glossary for all Google measurements. But I'll send this through with a number of other links that will help you in enabling the Google marketing platform. The one tool we haven't looked at is Google Surveys. That is something that is for market research, but it is often a tool that's online market research versus in-person voice of customer, actually face-to-face, is a very different way of getting some genuine market research done. And so we won't cover Google Surveys today, but there is that tool there if you wanted to tie into the Google platform. And in fact, there's a number of tools which I will send through via email. So I hope that despite not having the slide deck working properly, that you are able to get some value from the different tools that I've walked through. We've looked at Google Analytics and some of the measurements in there. So I'll just click back to the home. We've looked at Google Tag Manager for tracking events and custom interactions on a website. We've looked at Google Data Studio, which is making it much, much easier to report and view on how things are performing, whether it's Google Ads or search performance or let's scroll back up. E-commerce, marketing, there's a bunch of templates in there for you to look at. And last but not least, without installing the extension, we looked at Google Optimize for split testing and personalization. So I hope that you have enjoyed the session, and if there are any questions, please send them through.